Oh, that's good. I had my mic off. Right, let's pretend that we're just everything has gone perfectly. I was just saying when I came on, when you do these streams, you've got a preview stream thing and you put a picture on. And I've been sitting here sipping Cokes. And I thought, okay, I'll start. And I had a wee bit of Coke. And I did the thing and I just looked on the screen. And the stream starts with me going, you know, like a gremlin. So I apologise for that. But as I was saying, at least I wasn't sitting like this, you know, doing a James Seconda. You're not going to catch me out with that type of thing, folks. No way. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing okay. This is going to be another live tutorial, and I have to be honest, I am completely winging it with this one. What do you think of the fake tan, by the way? This is my real skin colour. This is my fake tan colour. See? Different. I'm honest about it. But I do have a fabulous excuse for wearing fake tan, and it's not just in tribute to Donald Trump. A few months ago, I noticed that I had these little white patches appearing on my forehead and in other interesting places. And as crazy as it sounds, I think I might have a touch of the old vitiligo. If you look at a few of my recent videos, especially, and I'm trying to figure this out, I'll use this comb. If you look around about, you can't see it right now because I'm covering it up, but if you look around here, I've got these white patches that have appeared. And it looks like lumps, you know. For a while I thought, have I got a lump on my head? And then I looked in the mirror. To my horror, it's not a lump. I have no lumps. But I have got these sort of, I mean, I've got really pale skin. I am virtually a vampire. But these are like pure white patches. And I think I might have a touch of the old vitiligo, as crazy as it may sound. So that's my excuse. That's why I'm wearing fake tan. Because I can either go around with crazy old white blotches. I mean, I know I've got light coloured skin, but it's not pure white. See, pure white looks crazy. So I can either go around like that, put on makeup, and I'm far too macho for that, or I can chuck on a bit of the old Saint-Tropez and pretend that my teeth are slightly whiter than they really are. So I choose that option every time. Now, we have Iron Man. How you doing? Ding, 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 ding. He says this is called getting older. Well, thank heavens for that. There's an episode of The Equalizer where at the end of it his friend says, you know what, Robert, we're getting old. And The Equalizer says, I think it's thank heavens for that. And that's my own attitude to these things. Thank heavens. Thank heavens. Anyway, nice to have you here, Iron Man. Cool name, and very good to see you. I get $500,000 every time I do that, by the way. Monopoly dollars. Anyway, we are going to be doing a live tutorial today, and I have done no preparation whatsoever for this one. So I'm probably going to make a complete fool out of myself, and the chances of this one staying up are slim. After the tutorial, I'll hang about for a wee while and do a Q&A. So if you look at the timeline and it's about a mile long, it doesn't mean that it's a long tutorial, okay? So, shall we dance? Oh, people, do you hear me? Shall we dance? Any day above ground is a good day. Well, you may be right, but you know something? You probably don't want to get too much into philosophy with me because, see, lately, I find myself just like, I don't know. I mean, I've kind of stopped caring. I look at everybody nicking about saying, oh, Iran's got nukes. Oh, what are we going to do about Iran? Oh, everybody watch what you're doing. And I'm just thinking, and I know it sounds like I'm a keyboard warrior, but I'm being authentic. If I had one message for Iran or the Russians or anything, it would be, please come ahead. Please come ahead. The heating bills are ridiculous. Put me out of my misery, you lightweights. I'm waiting. And my second message to them would be, I forgive you. Really and truly, I don't give a rat's ass. We are living in a world of fear. And he who is without fear shall be king. In fact, it's funny, you know, I had a message there from the Meme Meister, who has his own YouTube channel. He talks about Commodore 64 games and stuff like that. It's a really good channel. If you search for Mame Meister, and don't ask me to spell it, maybe I'll leave a link in the description, or maybe I'll leave a link in the chat. Yeah, I'll do that. But he came on and left a comment the other day, said something to the effect of he was enjoying listening to me. And it turns out that there's one or two people who listen to me from time to time, and they're not web developers or anything, they're just friends, you know. And I think that's really cool, and I would love to, here's his channel, by the way, there's his little link. I would love to stop talking about web development here eventually. Wouldn't it be nice? We can talk about some other things. There is so much to talk about these days. But for the moment, here we are, and we have to at least continue with a pretense of caring about web development. 7 people were recently kidnapped in Gaza. What is being done? I have no clue about any of that, B-Tunes, but whatever response from me is the most offensive, that's the response I want you to take home. I don't know what side you're on, but if I can cause as much offense as possible, that's the side I want to be on. There you go. Okay, any other questions? Good. And I'll tell you one thing. If I was in... Oh, I better not. I haven't even started the tutorial and already I'm being cancelled. Alright. Peace and love to them all. Peace and love to them all. That's it. But in all seriousness, folks, I've had it. I've had it with the fear-mongering. I've had it with all of the bullshit. I've had it. And I'm not living like this anymore. If anybody's going to fire a nuke or come and behead me or anything, come and get me. Come and get me. And as a matter of fact, I have a parking ticket right now and they keep on doubling the price. So please, put me out of my misery. I'm unarmed. Okay. So, tutorial, eh? Web development, you say. Right. So we're going to do a little tutorial live and I'm probably going to mess it up. It's Dan Stuff. Ahoy! Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, so we're going to cover API authorization and authentication with the Trongate framework. And did you build CodeIgniter? No, I built Trongate. CodeIgniter is bullshit. So we're going to be using the Trongate framework, the fastest PHP framework in all of the PHP community. The PHP framework that is truly modular. The only PHP framework that is V1 forever. The only framework of any technology that gives you a free graphical query builder. And the one thing I'm most proud of, the only PHP framework that is officially cancelled. Let's face it, folks, they do not, I'm going a little bit Kevin Trudeau on you. It's the framework they don't want you to know about. It's Trongate. So let's see if we can do a little bit of authorization shenanigans. I think my screen's okay. I'm just making sure there's no abhorrent imagery or anything. And let's give this a go. I think already I'm feeling as if I'm going to have to delete this one because there's so much waffle, you know. Anyway, right, so I'll start this one off by making sure that I've got XAMPP started. Now you can get XAMPP free of charge for Mac, Windows, Linux, all of that stuff. And that is going to just give us PHP and MySQL up and running on our computer. So here it is here. If anybody wants to chuck in the link to where you can download XAMPP, I'd be grateful. Maybe I should do it. It's the Apache Friends website. Download XAMPP and here you go. So this is where we're getting XAMPP from. Alright, so we've now started up XAMPP. We have PHP and MySQL up and running. If I refresh the screen, here we go, and tally-ho. Now, I haven't looked at authorization and authentication for ages, and I literally and genuinely cannot remember any of this stuff. However, I have the documentation here, and I'm going to just go through the documentation as if I'm reading it, and we'll go through it together, And by the end of this, we will all be experts. So, are we working? Can you hear me? All right, well, let's get this happening. I'm going to start by opening up the Trongate desktop app. It's available from trongate.io. It's free, it's open source, and of course, you can use it commercially. So, thank you, Dan. Thank you for answering the question so brilliantly. That's right. So we're going to create a new app, and I'm going to call this one API Auth. You can call your app anything you want, but it's going to suggest a base URL. I'm going to click here, get some database connections, choosing a location for the app. I'll have it inside htdocs, and it is as easy as that. It has now downloaded the latest version of Trongate from GitHub, set it up on the computer, all of the configuration handled, everything working. I mean, we've even got, like, if I go to Trongate Pages Manage, we've even got a fabulous content management system and all of this stuff. Just look at the beautiful picture uploader. We now have all of this stuff all set up and all ready to rock. Let's upload a little picture just to show you. Now, which other framework do you know that gives you this stuff, folks? I don't know if you noticed, but they've been pretending it's not secure lately. The idiots. Don't you believe a word of it. It's a fabulous framework, and if it were not, then I would not be here. But this is our content management system. We are going to be looking at authorization and authentication, and we're going to be looking at it from an API perspective. So what I think I'm going to do is, I know we're all sick of it, but I'm going to do another task manager just because it's easy and it helps us to focus on the task at hand, if you'll pardon the pun. So let's create a new module. New Trongate module. Task is the singular. We'll just zoom through this stuff. You can have labels and all that if you want. But I'm going to open up the properties builder. We'll have a variable character of title. And then we'll have a boolean of finished. Is the task finished or not? Okay. So a really simple module here, folks. And we'll just order by ID ascending. There you go. Okay, it doesn't even matter if yours is slightly different from mine. So here's our admin panel. On the left, on the top left here, you can see we've got our articles link for the content management system. We've got our tasks. And now I'm going to create a new task record. So let's just do that. And we'll say task 1. And let's do 3 of them. Let's say task 2. And then we're going to say task 3, okay? So we'll make this one finished just to make life interesting. And there you have it, 3 tasks, admin panel, the whole shooting match. And it's all up and running in minutes. Now, let's open up our text editor of choice. For me, it's Sublime. And I'm going to open up the app that I've just created here. So it's inside htdocs, and it is API Auth. Here it is here. So this is the project that was just created, and you can see all of our configuration has been taken care of. I'll just clear this. Please do give Trongate a star on GitHub. If we stop getting stars, I'm gone. We need stars. We're not getting enough. In fact, I'm slightly irritated by that, to be honest. I mean, you do realise that all of this is free, right? It's all free. There's no upsell here. There's no pro version or anything. All we ask is if you like using the Trongate framework, please give this framework a star on GitHub. It's the only metric that counts. It's the only metric that counts. Okay. So here's our modules folder. Here's our tasks. We've got controllers. This has got all of the PHP code. Don't worry if yours looks different. Actually, don't even worry if your page here looks different. It's fine. Designs change, you know, code changes, but the fundamentals will never change. Now let's go into assets, api.json, and here you can see all of the settings for our API Explorer. Okay? If we take, for example, this get one here, that one is saying, and you can see it right on the screen, it says that the authorization for this, now I'm going to click into the API Explorer. Let's click into it. So here's our get endpoint. We can click here to test it. And if we hit submit, you'll see that it says invalid token. So that's because it's expecting you to be an administrator before you can access this endpoint. Now, I am going to go through the documentation and I'm going to take you through all of these authorization types, hopefully. I cannot remember all of them, but we'll figure it out together. And I think by the end of this, you will truly be an expert. So the first type of authorization we're going to look at is wide open authorization. We've covered this before. So this is where we say authorization, a little quotation, and an asterisk, and save it. So what that means is that we can now access this endpoint without having to tick bypass authorization or anything. As a matter of fact, let's copy this little section down here, the URL segments. Let's head to where our website is. Here's the home page, and I'm going to paste in those segments. And now we are accessing our API endpoint directly. Do you see that? And I just wanted to show you that working, okay? So again, if I have this the way it was, so that it's authorization roles admin, it's saying invalid token, but because we've made it wide open, there you go. And of course, we can test it using this API Explorer, and there you go. Okay? Kinda cool. Now hopefully that's reasonably straightforward. The next type of authorization I want to look at is role-based authorization. Now, before we get into this, I really want you to get a full flavor of how this works. So if I can, I'm going to see if I can download a module from the module market. So I haven't done this for a while, but let's give this a try. I'm going to say create new module. I'm going to say browse the module market. And we've got a module here called simple members. Here it is here. And I'm going to see if I can get this module. Looks like we can. Perfect. So that has downloaded this module from the module market. Now, if you're not able to do that for some weird reason, just listen to the friendly voice and watch the video. You'll be fine. But this module comes with some database shenanigans. So I'm going to run the module import wizard. And you can see that we've got a couple of SQL files. We've got a members table. And here's the SQL for it. I'm going to run that. And we've also got a Trongate user levels table. And I'm going to show you the SQL for that. And all it does is it creates a new user level called members. Let's just run this. Okay, perfect. So we now have a members module. I'm going to look at the app here. Do you see how we've got a module called members? Here it is. There's a little readme here. And let's see if we can, let me just see here. Let's see if we can create a member account. So if I go to /members, oh, let's go to /members /login. Ah, there we go. Now it's saying, okay, it's saying not a member. I'm going to click on this and very quickly I'm going to create an account. So I'll give this one a username of, now that irritates me. See that autocomplete? That is a little bit of an irritation, especially when you're doing a tutorial. So I'm going to go into members, and you can see if you look really closely, it's got a folder called account. An account is a module within a module. See how it's got a views file and everything? So let's look at this join thing here. So let's see if we can find this. Now this is on, here it is. It's actually the join module. And if we go to views, we've got join.php. This is the form. If I do a little X, see how I've changed it? Okay, now I'd like to get rid of that autocomplete. It's kind of annoying. So I'm going to say attribute, autocomplete equals off. There you go. Now, if we click here now, there is no more annoying autocomplete. And in fact, that will carry on for all of the other fields. So I'm going to create a user called Arthur. I'll say that the first name is Arthur. I'll say that the last name is Smith. And I'll say that the email address is arthur@trongate.io. Now, just before we submit this, let's have a look at how this is going to work. You can see our join controller here. And you can see that we've got a method called submit join. So this is going to check the username, the first name, all of that stuff. Make sure it's available. On and on we go. And then you can see we've got a thing called force double opt-in. If this was a real website, let's say a members website or some kind of discussion forum, we might change force double opt-in to true. And that would mean that when they sign up, you would have the ability to send them an email, perhaps to their address or something like that, and they could confirm it, and they'd basically have to double opt in. But we're going to keep that off just now. So that means that when I submit, it should create me my account without any problems. Here we go. And there you go. So now we've got this please set password feature. It says they must be at least 5 characters long with at least one number. So I'm going to go for hello 1 2 3. Okay, hello 1 2 3. Set password, and there you go. All right. So, pardon me. What we've just done is we've just created a members record. I'm going to show you the database, if I may. So if we look at databases, API auth, all of the tables are here. Here's our members table. You can see that the password has been all scrambled up. Everything is beautiful. And if you look, you can see that we've got a Trongate user levels table. And we've now got 2 user levels. We've got admin and we've got member. Now, let's make life a little bit interesting. I'm going to make a module up called test. So it's going to be called test. Here it is. It's an ordinary module. Like any ordinary module, it's going to contain controllers and it's going to contain views. Inside controllers, it'll have a file called test.php with an uppercase T. We're going to go into PHP. We're going to say class test extends Trongate, and then I'll do a little index method and I'll echo hello. Alright, and save that. Now, if we go to our base URL /test, you should see something that looks a bit like this. Fair enough. Now let's make life interesting. We're going to say data view file equals test, I'll just call it. And then I'm going to say this, let's load up a template. We'll load up the public template and we'll pass in a bunch of data. Save and refresh. You can see that it's trying to load up test.php. So I'm going to go into the views folder of the test module and we're making a file called test.php. And I'm just going to say test ahoy. Save, refresh, and there you go. Okay, so this is an ordinary page here. And what we're going to do is from this page, we're going to test our API endpoints. Here's the source code. Look at how clean it is. There are no third-party libraries here, which is one of the reasons why it's so fast. Now, let's go to the start of this index method here. And we're going to say this module, and we're going to load up Trongate tokens. Now, Trongate tokens is a module that comes with the Trongate framework. Here it is here. And inside here, you'll see that there is a thing that says attempt get valid token. So we are going to say Trongate token is this. Now, by the way, you don't have to call it this. You can just call it token if you want. But I'm going to say that it's Trongate tokens attempt get valid token. Now, I'm going to echo the Trongate token and do a die statement. And you can see that we now have this token here. The reason why we've got this token is because we are logged in as a member. If I go to members-account/your account, you can see that we're logged in, right? Now, if I sign out, I'm going to sign out. Actually, let me just quickly do something here. Let me go to config. I'll change the environment to live because I really want it to respect when I'm logging out and stuff. If I do dev, it will just keep logging me in, right? But we'll change it to live. And I'm going to sign out as a member. All right. Now, check this out. We'll open a new window. I'm going to head back to this test page. And as you can see, this time we don't have a Trongate token. In fact, if I var dump Trongate token, it just says false because we're not logged in. So, to be clear, we are going to this basic, very simple test page and we are attempting to get a token. If we are logged in, it will give us a token. If we're not logged in, it will just give us this boolean of false. Now let's log in by going to members/login. And I'm going to log in by saying Arthur hello 123. I'll say remember me. And that's us logged back in. So now I'm going to that test endpoint. And again, there is the token. It's a 32 character random string, okay? So, congratulations us, we are logged in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the token into the view file. But in fact, I just thought of something. If the Trongate token is equivalent to false, let's redirect to members login. So what we're doing there is we're going to make sure the user is logged in. How cool is that? Little old if statement. But assuming everything is good, we're going to pass the token into the view file. So let's just say data token equals Trongate token. Now I know that I could have done this with one line of code or whatever, but I'm trying to make these tutorials simple. Fair enough? Okay. So let's go into the test view file. We'll do an H2, pardon my bleeping phone, and we'll say your token is, and then in PHP we're going to echo, using short tags, we're going to echo the token. And there it is, okay? So that's our page. You can see the token and everything is beautiful. Now, let's do a paragraph with a button. And with the button, we're going to just say send HTTP request now. Save, refresh, there you go. You can make this bigger by saying class equals XL. And now we've got a big old button here. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to be sending requests to our endpoints here. And this is going to give us an opportunity to test out the authorization. Okay? Now, let's have a div with an ID of server response like this, okay? Server response. Now, if we save and refresh, there's nothing to see here because this is an empty div. But that's okay, because the idea is that we're going to have it adding a server response in here, and we're going to be able to look at the server response and all of that stuff. Now, if it makes you feel good, do a little bit of styling. Maybe we'll say that the ID of server response has got a background color, and I'm going to just make it maybe all the D's like this. Perhaps we could add a little padding, 1em, not too bad. Perhaps we could add in some line height, maybe 1.4em. And if you're feeling particularly outrageous, you could say border, 1 pix, all the E's, or even all the C's, solid. And it just gives us this nice little div here where we can see the server response, you know, like this. In fact, how about if we just say server response? There you go, okay? So this is what we're going to be building, and I do hope that you can handle the vibe. Now, when you submit requests to a server, when you submit an HTTP request, you're going to get an HTTP response code returned, and you're also going to get some response text returned, or a response body. So let's say, let me think here. Okay, let's say we'll have a paragraph, and we'll say HTTP response code, like that. Now I'll just say 4 X's for the moment. Then we'll have another paragraph, and we're going to say HTTP response text, okay? Now I'll take this stuff out, and here we're going to say span ID is, and we'll say response hyphen code. Oops, pardon me, my finger slipped. Response code. So this is a span here, okay? And we're going to do exactly the same here, but we'll say response text here. Okay, now let's do a little bit of styling for these two things. So I'm going to say that dot, or pardon me, hash symbol response code, and comma hash symbol response text. So for both of them, I'm just going to say font weight bold. So if we save and refresh, there you go, okay? So this is what we've got. I've zoomed you in a wee bit here, and that is the vibe. Now, let's make this button send a request, okay? So I'm going to say on click equals send request, like this, okay? And we're going to go into JavaScript, and we're going to do a little bit of JavaScript magic. So we'll say function send request, and I'm going to do a get request. So I'm going to say const http equals new XML http request. Then I'm going to say http.open, and this is going to be a get request. Now if you're going to do a get request somewhere, we need a target URL. So let's take, for example, this URL here, okay? So it's going to be, in fact, I'll just say const target URL. I'm going to break into PHP and say base URL, like this, in short tags. Then I'm going to join on API /get /tasks. So this URL, okay? So we're doing a get request to that target URL. That's fantastic. And then we're going to say http.send. That's going to send the request. And when that's finished, we're going to be running http.onload equals function. And now we are going to bring this thing to life. So what I'll do is I'll take out these X's here. Okay. And the first thing we'll do is we'll populate the response code. So I'm going to say const response code, response code element, right? So response code L, and that's going to be document.querySelector. Now you can say get element by ID if you want, that's fine. I'll just say query selector response hyphen code. Then I'm going to populate the response code element with the real response code. So how do we do that? Super easy. We just say response code element dot inner text equals, and it's going to be the response that comes back from the server. So that's going to be http.status. So that's going to give us something like 200, for example. Okay, so now maybe this comment should go up here. Now that we've done that, I'm going to populate the response text element with the real response. I don't know why I'm saying real text. So how do we do this? Well, we say const response text element is document.querySelector, a little ID of response hyphen text, and then we're simply going to say response text element dot inner. Actually, I'm going to say inner HTML. So the inner HTML is going to be http dot response text. http dot response text. Okay, you could have said inner text if you want. I just said inner HTML to confuse everybody. So let's save this. We're going to go back to our page, refresh, and we're going to submit. And there you go. So if I zoom you in, you can see our response code is 200. There's our tasks, and everything is fantasticola. Now we can make this even better. For example, when we hit this this send request thing, if you want to be really cool, you could create a temporary spinner. Why not? So I'll say const temp spinner is document.createElement.div. I'm going to say temp spinner set attribute, and the class is going to be spinner. Okay, then I'm going to take, now all of this is inside a kind of main element, but what we could do is we could say, see this server response thing, we could say hide the server response div. So we could say const server response element is document query selector, and it's an ID, so hash symbol, server response. And to hide the server response element, I'm just going to say server response element dot style dot display is none. Now I want to get the parent of the server response div. So I'm going to say const parent container is, and it's going to be server response element dot parent node. Now I happen to know that that's an HTML tag called main, but it doesn't matter, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say parent container dot append child of temp spinner. And then I'm just going to hit return, by the way. Save this, right? So watch this. When I hit send, boom, a fabulous little spinner icon appears. The server response is gone and everything is fantasticola. By the way, return stops this in its tracks. So what we're going to do? Well, we're sending our request. It's doing its thing. But when we get a response, we are now going to remove the spinner. So remove the temp spinner and display the response. So the way that we do that is we say temp spinner dot remove, and to display the response we're going to say server response element dot style dot display equals block. Simple as that. Look at the beautiful simple code, folks. We're going to save, refresh. So here we go. Send a request. Boom. And it's so fast you can hardly even see the spinner. But it's there. Isn't that excellent? Okay, so now it's show time at the Apollo. Because now we're going to go back to these endpoints of ours. The ones that are to do with the tasks module. And we're going to bring all of this stuff to life, okay? So, if we say authorization is roles of admin, I'm going to refresh, I'm going to send. As you can see, it's saying 401, which means you're not allowed. And by the way, if you go to the Trongate documentation, there is a page that shows you what all of these response codes mean. In any event, that means we're not allowed. Now, suppose we say, okay, well, we're logged in as Arthur, and Arthur is a member. So let's say member. Great. Save. We're going to go back, refresh, and hit the request thing again. And unfortunately, it still says 401. That's because we need to attach this token to our request. So when we make our request, this token is going to let the server know that we are in fact a member. As you can see, we've said that members are allowed, so we're a member and it should be cool. Therefore, let's go back to this test method. You can see that we're passing in our Trongate token here. That's looking good. So we have a token that's being passed into the view file. And I'm going to go to where this HTTP request is being made with JavaScript. And just before we send, I'm going to attach a token to the header of my HTTP request. You can do this with one line of code. This is the line of code, okay? And I used a shortcut there. I'm cheating here. But I'll walk you through it, right? So the line of code is, in fact, I'll see if I can remember this. It's going to be after the dot open, we say http dot set request header. Now this is going to have two arguments. The first argument is Trongate token in camel case. And the second argument is the token itself. Now to get the token, I'm going to go into PHP and echo token. And there it is. That's us now attaching our token onto the request, okay? Now I have shortcuts for these. I can never remember these things. So with me, I would normally just do something like that. But I think we're good and all is well. So let's save that. And we're going to do the same thing again, a little refresh for good luck. We're going to send the request, and hallelujah, behold, we now have authorization. It's given us authorization because authorization has been set to a role of member, and on this occasion, we successfully attached a token. Here's our token, and we attached it to our request. Isn't that fantasticola? Now, if I had said admin, by the way, refresh, it's not letting us do it because our token corresponds with a member. Do you remember what I'm saying? Because we logged in as a member, right? Now, you could, by the way, say member, admin, comma, member. So you could make this an array. And that would mean that anyone with a user level of admin or a user level of member can access the endpoint. Let's just save and refresh. There you go. Kinda cool, kinda cool. So that, my friend, is role-based authorization. Again, if we had, let's say, just admin declared, it's not going to let us do it. We're logged in as a member. So you have to have your role defined, and there it is, okay? All right, now let's go back to the documentation. We've covered wide open, we've covered role-based. Now, the other type is ID-based authorization. I'm just reading the docs, by the way. It says it's a type of API authorization that allows access to users whose Trongate user ID exists within a predefined array of permitted Trongate user IDs. Now that sounds complicated. So let's see if we can get our heads around this one. I'm going to click into the ID-based authorization page here. It's right here. And what we've got is, so this is how it goes. Right, okay. So if we look at our database here, take a time out and you'll see that there is a database table called Trongate users. At the moment, we've got 2 users. The first user is an admin user. It comes with the framework. It's the default, okay? The second user is Arthur, our members account. So what this is saying is that we can do this user IDs thing. And instead of adding in a role, we can add in the user ID. Let's demonstrate this right now. So if we go here at authorization, we're going to say user IDs. So we're writing it like this in camel case. And this is going to be an array. So square brackets, just like last time. Okay? And all we have to do is chuck in a number for each and every ID that we're going to allow. Now you can do it on another line like this and have a different line for each one. Or you can even have it all on the same line. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to say user ID is 2 and save. So now if we go back to our endpoint, we're going to send the request, and would you believe it, it totally works. If we had said user ID is 1, that means that only the administrator can access this endpoint, the user whose Trongate user ID is 1. And just to give you a super quick idea of how all of this tags together, in the case of members, we've got a members table. We've then got a Trongate users table, which goes over here. Each member has a Trongate user ID. So it's something like this. And each Trongate token is attached to a Trongate user ID. And finally, we've got these Trongate user levels. And each Trongate user level is attached to, or each Trongate user record is attached to a Trongate user level. So this is the structure of our database. So as you can see, the members table is linked to the Trongate users table. There's a little bit of token shenanigan. You don't even need to know about this. But in the case of Trongate administrators, and perhaps I can demonstrate that. So that would be, let's imagine if you go to, now I'm going to go to members, log out. I'm going to log out as a member. Then I'm going to go to /, tg-admin. And from here, I can say admin, admin. And I have now logged in as an administrator. So for an administrator, I'll take this off. That would be this table. So this table would join to Trongate administrators, and an administrator has a Trongate user level of admin. You don't really need to know how this is all working actually, but I'm logged in as an admin, right? I'm going to go back to this test page here. I'm an admin, and if I send the response, it's letting me in. Now, why did it let me in? Well, if we look at our API endpoint, you'll see that it's letting the user in who has an ID of 1. And if you double check with your database tables, that corresponds with the administrator. If I change it to 2, try again. Now it's not letting me in. It will only let Arthur in. Okay, so as you would expect, you can do commas. So now it's going to let the admin user or Arthur access the endpoint. And there you have it. So that is called user, what are we calling it? ID-based authorization. So we are declaring the IDs that should be able to access a page. And there's how it works. And you are an expert. Okay, I'm going to check the room and see if anybody's here. See if there's any questions or comments or suggestions. How are we doing so far? How are we doing? Is everybody okay? I loved your Agile video. The bit about the kneecap was hilarious. I don't remember that. What did I say? It was amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Sao. We have another with a message retracted. Must have been an Agile fan. We have Mohammed here. You should make more videos, and you're from Bangladesh. Thank you. Well, Mohammed, I have good news for you. I do videos every day. I live stream every day right here, usually for between 6 and 8 hours a day. And I know that all of you folks in Bangladesh are hanging about, wondering where you can spend your vast amounts of wealth. Well, the good news is I've solved that problem for you. Mohammed, you can become a channel member, and for $5 a month you can come join the fun bus, and together we shall create a coding utopia. I've got, I think, 29 members so far. Thank you for all the members. We have 1 or 2 here, and that is the vibe. But I'm making videos every day. It's just that it's for the members, you know. And the reason why I did that is because I had these jealous Laravel developers coming after me, and it was just no fun. We have another, are we using SQL or no SQL? We're using SQL. Of course we're using SQL. Shebansh. We're using SQL. We're using MySQL actually. All right. Everybody okay so far? Any questions, comments, or suggestions? I'm going to get a quick can replacement, and then we'll go on to, what's the next one? What is the next one? It's a legit question. The next one is user ID segment authorization. So hang on 2 seconds. All right, folks. All right. So it's user ID segment authorization. Let's have a look at the docs. Let's figure it out together. So this one looks at a given URL segment and grants access if the user's ID corresponds with the value passed via the URL. That seems pretty straightforward. So let's have a little look at this. If we take our test endpoint here, and now we are on the index method, so I'll say /index, right? And then I'm going to / the number 1. Okay? Now, it just so happens that the number 1 corresponds with the Trongate user whose ID is 1, in other words, the administrator. So, looking at the documentation here, we've got this authorization user ID segment. So, I'm going to say authorization, and actually I've just realized something. I've just realized that this was stupid because it's referring to the segment where the HTTP request happens. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not referring to this URL. It's referring to this URL, API get tasks, you know, and some number. So let's see. Now I think I'm gonna go to this find one endpoint, because this could get a little bit confusing if there's all IDs and everything everywhere. So let's go to the find one endpoint. We're going to go to our api.json file, and right here we're going to say authorization, and it's going to be an object, and the name of it, straight from the docs here, it's user ID segment. So user ID segment, and we pass in a segment number. So I'm going to say that the segment number is, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is going to be the user ID segment. Now, that's fair enough, but we need to now change our target URL. So let's go back to the test thing here. We're going to go to this target URL. We'll do that. Now it's to show you the URL. It's API get tasks. It is going to be a get request, but we're going to chuck in the task ID. I'll make the task, let's say 3. And then we're going to do / and we'll chuck in the user ID, let's say 1. Okay, so that's the task ID. That's the user ID. I'm going to save, and my fingers are crossed. 401, yay! Now, why did that happen? Ah, jeez. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me try 2. Yep. This is why we don't like doing live tutorials, folks. It's a mugs game. A mugs game, don't you know? Is it referring to... It can't be referring to the ID from the... Oh, geez. Let me look at the documentation. Okay. The segment num should be an integer with the URL that you'd like to read the segment from. Okay. So... Hold on a second. Let me go to... Let me try this. Try this stupid example again. Now I'm going to go back. Okay, we're not in dev mode. I'm going to go back to the API Explorer, change to dev mode. And let me just give this a try. So we're saying invalid token. Now, if we say right, get task / 1 invalid. Invalid. Well, that's kind of strange. You know what? I'm going to look at that at the end of this live stream. So, let's make life easy. The user ID segment authorization is clearly not quite happening. Let's pretend I'm at a crossroads. Do I fix it right now? Or investigate it? Or do we move on? let's have a look here. User ID is target value. Right, okay, I'm going to see if I can fix it. So let's do this. Now this could be really embarrassing. I'd like some sympathy here. Can I please have a wave of sympathy? Good. I'm going to give it just a few minutes, right, and see if we can fix it. So here we go then. So if we say test, if we go here, now our URL was this. Now I'm going to go to this here, and I'm going to say, do you remember Trongate tokens? Well, we've got a thing here called get user ID, and it's going to return the Trongate user ID. So if I say Trongate user ID is this, Trongate tokens get user ID, I'm now going to echo the Trongate user ID, which will confirm that our user ID is 1. Okay, so we are logged in as an administrator. That is confirmed. Now, when we do our request, we'll chuck in an ID of 1, and we're going to send, it says invalid token. Now, I am going to bring up, this is me just fixing a framework on the hoof. How embarrassing. Okay, but I'm going to say a little console.log sending request to, and it's going to be target URL. So we're sending a request to that, and it's saying unauthorized. Now, let me look at line 844 of this framework. I'm going to echo yes with a little die statement. Okay. So the endpoint auth rules. Let me var dump endpoint auth rules. Okay, I'm going to go back to this thing. Now, when this loads up, I'm going to console.log http status and http response text. Undefined. Okay. So, die statement. Undefined. Hello. Undefined. Well, isn't it great when it says undefined? That's the bit that I like. Right, there is most definitely something weird going on here. So, make sure user is allowed. Hold on. I'm beginning to think this is a typo. So if I say authorization, now let me just quickly double check this. If the authorization is wide open, we get our response. Okay. Heading back to this. Typo. Typo. Right, there's our response. Okay, can I go back to this garbage that I was doing a minute ago? Okay, so it's saying invalid token. Now, let's Echo segment, I'll say 3 with a die statement. Good, so that's saying tasks. Now we are saying segment 5, which is 1. Segment 4 is also 1, and that makes sense. Okay, so segment 5 is the user ID segment. Good. Now, I'm going to var dump these endpoint auth rules. Okay, so we've said user ID segment and we've said 5. Now, let's go down here and I'm going to echo yes. And we get yes. Excellent. Now, the target, it's looking for a target value here. So let's echo the target value. It's looking for a target value of 1. Now let's echo the Trongate user ID. It's 1. If we match, let me change this to a single equals. Right, there's the error found. So the error is as follows. This is what the mistake was. If we var dump the target value with a die statement, it's a string. So what we have to do then is simply say set type set type target value event, and then this can go back to being a triple equals. Alright, so something that has never happened in the history of web development is about to happen. See this fix here with the triple equals? This is because we modernized the code. I am going to update the Trongate framework in real time and implement this fix. That's right, we have the power. So I know, talk about a farcical tutorial, but at least we figured out what it was, right? So we're talking about our standard endpoints here. There it is. And I'm going to go to, was it 845? Yep, it was that. So I'm just going to say set type target value is an int. Save. This is ridiculous, isn't it? Anyway, terminal. CD applications SAM htdocs Trongate framework. If I say get status, oh, looks like there was a change to Trongate CSS. Oh, what a beautiful live tutorial this turned out to be. Alright, give me a wee second here. Okay, so opening the Trongate framework. Here we go. Right, so here's a couple of changes. There's our... right, I just added some tweaks to this thing. Okay, so I'm going to just say correction to standard endpoints. There you go. Sending it to the sky. And the Trongate framework has just been updated. Now let me show you something really cool. Let's imagine that I had not fixed that. Let me break the thing again. So that's our, pardon me, that's our framework. Keeping that here. But let's go back, right? I'm going to break this again, right? So this is us back to the stage we were at 10 minutes ago. In fact, let's go all the way back. Right, so here we are, saving. And just imagine it's 10 minutes ago and I'm going, oh, it's not working. Check this out. I'm going to go into Engine. Now I'll close everything, right? I'm going to go into Engine, License. I'm going to change this number to any number less than the current value. Let's say 1.2 point blah blah blah. It's the license file. There's another license file in the main directory. I'll do the same thing here, changing it to 1.2, the version number, and I'm going to close everything. Now check this out. I'm going to reset the Trongate desktop app, modify existing app, and I'm going to choose the app that we're working on, which is the API Auth app. Now have a look at this. It says Trongate 1.3 point blah 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 is available, and we can update. And now I've successfully implemented that fix, and everybody watching can do the same thing. And it means that we now have, you miserable shithound. API. Why did that not get sorted? It should have. Give me a second here. Right, Trongate framework. Correction to standard endpoints. Here's the standard endpoints. It was, oh, that was user code segment. Oh, geez, I changed the wrong part of the framework. Okay, that was today's deliberate mistake of the day. Alright, so what I did there is I said set type here, but that's on a code, so this is at the wrong part. So let me take this out. And it's user ID segment. That's where it goes, okay? So make sure the target value is an integer. Alright, so a little tweak. Don't you just love these descriptive things? Alright, so it gives me an opportunity to show this thing off again. So again, I'm just going to go into the license file, change it to a lower number, save. There's two license files, one here and one in the main directory. Change to a lower number, save. Okay, so reset, modify existing app. It's this app, updating to the new version. There you go. And there you go. Has there ever been a live tutorial in the history of web development where the framework had a flaw and the flaw got fixed halfway through the tutorial? And I don't know. Congratulations, you have been here at a historic event, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, what we got here? I am programmer. Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Alright. Well, at least we got it working, okay? Chances of this video staying up? 0. Anyway. Okay, so we've now got our, let's have a look here. We've now got our user ID segment authorization working. It was all a bit shambolic, wasn't it? But in the end, all we had to do was go to something like find one, and we say authorizations user ID segment, pass the user ID in via the URL, and everything is fine. And we do have some nice documentation on this stuff here, and that is how it goes. Okay, so that's user ID segment authorization. Now the next type of authorization that we're going to look at, and I think there's only two more. So the next one is user code segment authorization. So this one looks at a URL segment and grants access if the user's Trongate user code corresponds with a value passed in the URL. So that sounds pretty straightforward. It's basically what we just did, except instead of passing an ID, we pass a code. So let's go to our authorization thing. We're going to say user code segment is 5. And if we look at the table here, the database, have a look at Trongate users, and you'll notice that each and every user has a code. So I'm going to copy this code here that corresponds with my own user, and then I'm going to go to this test endpoint, the page rather, and I'm going to change the target URL so that we've now got that code added on here, you see. Okay, so let's refresh, send, and as you can see, that has worked. If that did not work, I'd be crying like a baby. Now if I change this to a Z, right, refresh, you'll see it does not work. So this is authorizing based on the user's code that is being passed via the URL. Pretty straightforward. And by the way, you can combine these authorization rules. So you could say that we're using this type of authorization, but you could also combine it with something like this. So that would mean that the user whose code corresponds can get access, but so too can administrators. You can do that. Okay, I think we're on the last one. Oh, Jiminy. Right, so here we've got user-owned segment authorization. And thankfully, I have a fabulous video tutorial that covers that. But for the moment, let me walk you through this one. So, user-owned segment authorization. So, the way that this works, it says, let's assume that you have a database table that contains a column called Trongate user ID. Let's further assume that the Trongate user ID represents the Trongate user IDs of users who own or have been assigned to the table records. User-owned segment authorization lets you grant access only to users whose accounts can be matched to the records being fetched. This type of authorization requires the following declarations. 1. The name of the column on the database table that a Trongate URL segment represents. Let's read that again. The name of the column on the database table, so the name of a column that a URL segment represents. 2. The segment number from the URL where the target segment is to be found. So let's have a look at what we're saying here. Let's have a look here. So the name of a column ID is 1. I'm trying to figure this out. The ID from the URL segments property would represent the ID of the column from the members database table. Okay, so let's go through a basic example of this if we can. Let's think about something like find one, okay? So if we go to this find one, we can say something like ID is 3. We can say submit. And if we bypass authorization, it's giving us the details for the third task, right? And there's the URL. Now, I'm going to go back to the test thing. And I'm going to make this the URL. So we're now going to API get tasks 3. We're going to use find one, and we're going to fetch the details for that particular task. For the purposes of simplicity, let's make it wide open. So authorization, we're going to go like that. It's now wide open. So save it, head back here, send request, and there is our third record. No surprises, right? But remember that this is wide open. Now, what we're going to do now is head into the tasks table. So here's our tasks table. And if you look at the documentation, it says that we need, it needs to contain a Trongate user ID column, as well as a column matching the username that has been declared. Okay, so I have no clue what that means, but let's just see if we can figure it out together. So I'm going to go to structure. I'm going to add a column called Trongate user ID. It will be an integer with a default of 0. Let's save. So our tasks table has now got this Trongate user ID column. Okay. Now, here we are with our find one thing, and it's working fabulously, but it's wide open. So what we're going to now do is we're going to add in this type of authorization. I'm going to just take this, I'll just type it in actually. So the way that we do it is we say authorization, it's like an object, and we're going to say user owned segment. Okay, so user owned segment is going to be expressed as a sort of object here in JSON format, and we're going to have a column, and we're also, I'll just say X, and we're also going to have a segment num, and I'll just say Y. Okay, now in the case of find one, if we look at our thing here, our URL, the first segment is API, the second one is get, then we've got tasks as a third segment, and the fourth segment is the ID. That's how this endpoint works. So that means that the fourth column is ID, and the segment number is 4. So that's user owned segment. Now, I am logged in as an administrator with a Trongate user ID of 1. So I'm going to go to this third task, and I'm going to change the Trongate user ID to 1 and hit go. And now I'm going to refresh. I'm going to send request now. And there you go, it worked. Thank heavens for that. If I change the user ID to 2, let's see if we can do that real quick. Back on the same page, going to send, and it says invalid token. However, check this out. I'm going to go to TG admin. Now, I think that's logged me out. Okay, so let me go to members login. I'm going to log in as Arthur, and it's hello 123. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the same endpoint here. I'm going to test, send, and now it's letting me in. And why is it letting me in now? It's because this record has been assigned to Arthur. Now you may wonder, what's the point in this and why would you use this? Well, imagine you're building a members website, let's say a dating website or something like that. Well, you might want it so that only a particular owner or a particular user who's assigned to a record, let's say somebody's member profile, they might be the only person who can update their profile. You don't want some random to do it. So that's why you would do this user own segment thing. But in the case of a site like that, you might also say something like roles admin, add in a little comma. So what that would mean is the authorization is granted. Let's imagine it's an update your profile page. So the users who owns, or the user who owns the profile can update their own page, but so can admin. And that's how that would work. Okay, that's going to be the end of that one. And what a shambolic experience it turned out to be. Anyway, I hope that you got some value from that, folks. It was all a bit mad. Can you believe it? We are earning a living. Thank you so much indeed. Christian there with a fabulous, let me just see, is that 200? Is that Norwegian Corona? Something like that. Let's have a look here. What? Thank you. So whatever it is, I'm super, super grateful. I think it is. Thank you so much to my good friend Christian. You are officially a producer of today's show. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. That's awesome. Wow. Well, I'll take it. Gee, man, YouTube's pretty cool, isn't it? Thank you so much indeed for that. My employee of the month is freaking out on me. And I'm freaking out as well. Thank you very much indeed. NOK. I'm typing it in properly here, right? I'm just trying to... My AI, what? Let's see, is NO. I'm clueless. You'd think I would know. Okay. Yeah, it is. It's the Norwegian krone. Of course it is. Of course it is. And it's from our Viking warlord himself, the great Christian. Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it. Wasn't that a bit of a shambolic tutorial? But are there any questions, comments, suggestions, anything like that? This is your chance. Say what you gotta say, or forever hold your peace. Now, I have a question. When's the last time you watched a tutorial where the framework had a glitch and then it had to get fixed and all of that? But you know what? Just adjusting my lights. It's fine. We can handle it, you know? We can handle it. One of the things that I'm gonna... I suppose the tutorial is finished, so it gives me a chance to waffle. Anything you want me to waffle about, let me know in the comments. But I always say when I'm doing the live streams and all of that, that when you code with an expectation of success. Now, one of the things that people have figured out about me, Christian will know and some of the other regulars, I am no genius. That's for sure. There's mistakes all over the place, right? You just saw the tutorial. I was tripping up all over the place there. But even if you rewind to the point when things aren't working, like earlier on, I mean, what a disaster. Imagine doing a tutorial, you've done a framework, and the framework has a flaw, right? That's embarrassing. But apologies for my watch. But you watch this one back. Speaking of watches, ain't that one a beaut? Anyway, you watch the video back when that flaw's happening, and you will find that I'm smiling because I code with an expectation of success. This is no joke. This stuff will change your life. I left the education system with a degree in... What did I have? A degree in philosophy. So I had a lot of deep thoughts about delivering pizzas. But, and I used to say for so long, all that computing stuff, man. I'll leave it to the Japanese, you know. That I thought I was being so clever. There's nothing clever about it. And I'm telling you, you too can be a great developer. How arrogant. Well, anyway, at least I've built a couple of things. Thank you there. Christian says it's about 7:28. Christian, my friend, you're wrong. It's 14:52. So that's more than a coffee. That's going to be one of those ones with the cream and everything on top. Anyway, is there anything else we'd like to talk about? You name it and I'll solve it. Politics, anything, philosophy, the economy, sport. Sport. Now there's an interesting one. When I left school, I was a you'd never think it looking at me, but I was a full-time long-distance runner for 1 year. And I think for about 10 minutes, I was the second fastest. I tell people the fastest, but I was the second fastest, I think, under 20, 5,000 metre runner for about 10 minutes back in the mid-90s. And I've been looking at all of this sports stuff and I've been thinking, man, if I declare myself female and lose a few pounds, you never know. There could be a gold medal haul coming up here. What do you reckon, folks? What do you reckon? Anyway, do you watch NBA? No, I don't. I wouldn't have a clue about it. Looks like a good night out, though. I think it would be nice to go and watch it. I do have a qualification in basketball. When I was at school, I remember picking the courses and I looked and they had a course on basketball and I did that. So I'm qualified in basketball and I have a qualification in badminton. That's right, certificate and everything. I will never forget the exam. I sat the badminton exam and it was hilarious, you know. My friend Nikki and I were doing all of these stupid answers. I don't know what they were wanting, but it was like the exam was a farce. I remember we were having a little giggle fest as we were writing all of these stupid answers to these questions that we never could understand. So it's questions like, name a tactic that you could use against an opponent in a game of badminton. Now, how do you answer that? How do you answer that? And I remember I can't even remember exactly what I wrote, but I remember my friend's answer and I thought it was hilarious because I think whether we look at each other's papers and he had written, hit the shuttlecock to the left, hit it to the right, then hit it to the left, then hit it to the right, then hit it to the left. Then just when your opponent expects you to hit it to the right, hit it to the left again. I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate answer. I don't know how it went down, though. But anyway, I have a badminton qualification. And I remember the other answers. We had this stupid, completely juvenile contest to see who could write the most dodgy answers. So it was all stuff like hold the cock in your hand and all that. You don't want to know. YouTube will come after me. There goes my monetization. Shuttlecock, badminton. That's what we're talking about. So I had a qualification in badminton and I got a qualification in basketball. And I'm hearing here from Shibanshi says getting the WNBA. They wouldn't let me in. I'm too short. I'm far too short. I'm only 5'8", you know. I mean, I try my best to look tall here, but I'm a short dude actually, you know. I had somebody left a comment the other day because I said a story about I think I'd mentioned somehow I was talking about the episode with Tyson, the knee kick episode, you know. And somebody had left a comment, said, I believed you until you went on about all of that Bruce Lee stuff. And it was, what else are you lying about? And for a moment, I felt quite embarrassed with myself for even mentioning that story. Now, if you missed that, the story was that I was outside a workplace, and I mean, I'll give you names and all that if it helps. But basically, I was standing, there was a fag break going on. One of the guys said to me, I might have his picture, but one of the guys said to me, my friends call me Tyson, you know? And he explained that he gets called Tyson at the casino because he had knocked people out or something, and he says that he had saw a guy who was behaving in a rude manner towards a lady, and he knocked the guy out, and hence apparently some people called him Tyson. And the story I said on the last video, which was kind of slightly juvenile in hindsight, was that I said to him, hit me. And he looked at me kind of funny, and he says, well, why would I want to hit you? And I said, it's fine, we'll be okay, come and hit me. And no, he was never going to really hit. Of course I knew that he wasn't. He was going to do that, right? So anyway, as I said, come and hit me. And as he did that and he came forward, I leaned back and I basically simulated a knee kick to his kneecap, at which point he froze and went, woo, and that was it. That was the end of the story. And after this, there was a little moment where I think one or two people were impressed by this, let's just say, and they thought that I was something that I'm not. Now, when I'd mentioned that story, the guy was like, I believed you till you hit us with all the Bruce Lee stuff. So let me just clarify something. These are, well, this is an incredible watch, but these are very skinny little arms. I'm only 5'8", right? There is nothing intimidating about me whatsoever. I did join a boxing club when I was very young, and I was a grandmaster at hitting people with my nose, but I've never knocked anyone out or anything. Definitely not a violent guy. I'm a good runner. I can probably run faster than most of the people watching, right? But definitely not a boxer or a Bruce Lee guy or anything like that. The thing that I had explained, and I thought that this had come across, it was a party piece. It was a gimmick. It was a trick. And it was a trick that anybody can do. You see, here's He-Man here, right? If I say to He-Man, hey He-Man, come and punch me, right? So here's He-Man. He's much bigger than me. Well, he would be. But give me your sword of power for a moment, my friend. Right, if I say to He-Man, look, this is total body mechanics. It's nothing to do with being a hard man. If I say, okay, He-Man, come and get me, punch me. And He-Man's going to swing and he's going to try and punch, right? Now, if I'm 7 foot away, he has to walk over, right? And as he walks like that, he's going to load up and do that. And his knee is, can we have an articulated leg? It's the first legitimate reason for needing that. He's going to do that with his knee at some point. And I don't care if he's 7 foot tall. His knee is going to be a legitimate, valid target. And if I lean back and sidekick that, he cannot harm me. It's just a fact. It's a mechanical fact. And so the thing that I had mentioned was nothing to do with me being a hard man or anything like that. It was a party piece. You could do it. Your local janitor or cleaner could do it. Anybody could do it. It's a party piece. And it's a party piece that may or may not work in real life. I have seen somebody do it in real life. I was in the city centre once at Union Street, just outside where my office was, and I as I turned a corner, I saw a guy being attacked by a team, and the guy knee-kicked one of them who just dropped like a stone. And if you're wondering where I got that from, it was because in 2004, I recorded 115 martial arts training videos with Tommy Carruthers. 115. And it's funny that the guy mentioned Bruce Lee because I got to meet Ted Wong. If you look at the Bruce Lee fighting method books, I'll just show you. Okay, let's do a little Google search. Okay, so if you look at Here's the Bruce Lee fighting method books, right? If you really want to learn this stuff, the blue one is the one that you want, okay? The blue one. So the guy who is, let's see if we can find a picture. Right, the guy who's on the cover of that, that's Bruce Lee in the thing here. So this is Bruce Lee on the left, obviously. The guy who's getting his ass whooped, that is a gentleman by the name of Ted. Is that Ted Wong? I think that's Ted Wong. I think it's Ted Wong. But Ted Wong appears in the fight. That's Ted Wong for sure, holding the pads here. So I met Ted Wong, and really met, like shoulder to shoulder, and I spent some time chatting to Ted Wong, who was Bruce Lee's right-hand man. And so I got exposed to a lot of the people, there's Ted Wong again, who were around Bruce Lee. I also got to meet a guy, I never met him in person, this one, but I exchanged a lot of emails with this guy, who is Bruce Lee's first student. And he and I exchanged emails and we used to chat. He is on the record as being Bruce Lee's first student. His name is Jesse Glover. He died a few years ago, unfortunately. But strange as it is, I got a lot of... could you guys hear me there? Anyway, as strange as it is, I got a lot of exposure to the martial arts world. That does not, I repeat in the strongest possible terms, it does not mean that I'm a martial artist or anything. I'm more interested in healing people, right? But I have locked horns with some of the best in the business. And I've given you the names, I've given you the dates and everything, and that's where I learned this. It's a party piece, that's all it is. Try it with your friends and have fun, okay? Alright, what else have we got now? Have you seen this YouTube video called Why Martial Arts Are Suddenly Being Exposed as Fake? I've never seen it, but it wouldn't surprise me. Having said that, there is enough... Okay, let's talk about martial arts, right? Again, not a martial artist, but I have been in one or two... How do you say this gracefully? I've been in one or two altercations. I have been the winner. I have been the loser. From an entirely... I'm not a martial artist, right? But I'm a good developer. And that means that I'm good at identifying variables that affect change. As far as I can tell, when it comes to martial arts, the key variable that we should be mindful of, or the variable that really, really affects change, I think, as a programmer or a developer, is surprise. It's surprise. So when you have two people head to head, the guy who lands the first blow, especially if it's completely by surprise, as far as I can tell, that person is swinging the odds in his favour by like 90%. So I think that's a massive thing. Now, I also think that whenever, like, I can tell you about times where, just as a wee guy, I never wasn't in tons of fights or anything, but I can tell you about times when it went wrong. Playground bullies and all of that. And they just hit me and I'd be in a state of shock, And I can tell you about a time when it went right. I mean, if we must talk about this garbage. So, I did have a time when a guy in the city centre, Jamaica Street, you can look it up if you want, it's right in the heart of the Glasgow city centre. I did have a football thug who had attempted to assault me, and I was with a lady at the time. He actually went up to her, which was strange. and came out with the classic, "What are you looking at?" And I can remember that happened. And at that time, I had been looking at fighting method books and all of that. And I can tell you that it ended badly for him and well for me. And the thing that made the difference was nothing to do with, I knock him out or anything. I mean, if I punched any one of you watching, you'd probably laugh, right? But the thing that made the difference was that I had rehearsed this in my mind about 400 times before the guy had even walked into my life, So, for example, in that particular situation, the guy came up and it was dark and there was nobody around. And he says to the female I'm with, "What you looking at?" And he's like going ahead with her. It's strange, right? He must have been out of his mind on something. So I can remember I kind of got in between them and I said, "Look, we don't want any trouble." And I was saying, "It's absolutely fine. We don't want any trouble, And I was kind of using every part of the English language and body language and everything to chill the guy out. And the guy wasn't having it. And he was like, "What are you looking at then?" And it was just like this. And I can remember in my head, I said to myself, right, I am going to be Clark Kent. I'm going to be the nicest guy in the world so long as he stands behind this line. And I drew an imaginary line on the pavement. Must have been about 5 or 6 foot away. And then I thought, right, I'm going to be as nice as possible. I will do anything, beg, humiliate myself, you name it. But if he goes inside this imaginary line that I had drawn on the pavement, then he could kill me. And I'm not a violent guy, but I don't really want to die. I've got a few things I want to do. And he could kill the person I'm with. And I remember just like, "Look, we don't want any problems. I apologise, whatever it was. I hope you're okay." I tried everything. Nothing was working. And I was like, "Really, we don't want to..." And eventually the guy, as he was saying, "So what are you doing with it?" And I'm the guy. And he says, "So what are you doing?" And then he stepped forward. And when he did that, well, I remember I dealt with him in a way that will not be forgotten. That's all you're getting from me. But the key variable was nothing to do with me being Bruce Lee or anything. It was that I had rehearsed this in my mind hundreds of times before I even met the guy. And the moment you do that, you have eliminated the element of surprise. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm looking at this like a programmer. And I'm just thinking, right, what can I do to eliminate the element of surprise? And I think that that's interesting. And I also think that there's potential to use that type of psychology to remain safe without any violent altercations ever. I heard Darren Brown talking about this and how a guy came up and said, "What are you looking at?" And he said to the guy, "I had a look, those hedges are only 3 foot tall. The ones in Spain are 5 foot tall." And the guy just lost his mind and apparently ended up crying on the pavement, I find that kind of thing really interesting, not from a martial arts perspective. I'm not some tough guy. I find it interesting from a psychology perspective, okay? All right. Christian, thank you so much. Bless you very much, and I appreciate your incredible donation. Our executive producer, Christian, in full formation. Okay. So, Shibanshi, this may be our last comment of the day, says, "Nah, it's not what you think. It talks about how martial arts only work when you're fighting against some other martial artists. These fighting arts, unlike the movies, they can get you and your opponent really hurt." I can believe that. When I did the Tommy Carruthers training and I was recording and editing, I remember for the first few videos I was really impressed. And I thought, this could work, this is great. But then you could tell that there wasn't much to teach. So they have to create a curriculum, right? Otherwise, how are you going to get your membership fees? And I remember it just went on and on and on. And by the time you got to like video 80, it was just making it up as you go along, it felt like, and it was, to me, it felt that way, you know. Anyway, right, okay, so I think that's about me. That was a fun little stream. I want to thank you for passing by. I do enjoy these little interactions. I'm going to now do a little bit of real work. I may be joining the members stream in a minute. I know what you're thinking, what a nerve, but I do actually have a little members section and a few people who enjoy that. So I'm probably going to do that. But in the meantime, thank you for being here. Keep on coding and always